Welcome to Everything Casual, bringing you original football casual videos from the golden era of the 80s and 90s, right up to current day. Football away day stories and historic clashes between football firms. Subscribe so you don't miss out. We upload videos every week. Most of my videos are about football firms, deadly football rivals and violent clashes. But we will now also have football and crime collaboration videos with a leading true crime YouTube channel. And sometimes I will make videos purely about my own away day experiences, called the Birds, Booze and Banter series. This is one of those videos based on a naughty away day experience in Newcastle. Hope you enjoy. Casual. If you enjoy this video and would like to hear more of my stories, please click like and subscribe to be notified of when I release a new story. Newcastle away. Newcastle away is right up there for me as a great away weekend. If you were very lucky, the fixture would fall on a bank holiday and you could do Whitley Bay on the bank holiday. I don't know if that's still a thing, but it was in my day and Whitley Bay was quality. Kind of like a mini Blackpool. I will talk about my adventures there later on. So Newcastle it is then, and I was already aware of their firm called the Gremlins. I always wondered why they chose to call themselves that, and I've never found out, so if anybody knows why they called themselves that, then please let me know in the comment section, because it still baffles me now. Football aside, Newcastle is a very special place. The people are unlike any others in England. The closest comparison I can come up with is they are a bit similar to Scousers. Very, very friendly, very welcoming. We'll talk your head off, and no matter who you talk to, they know all about the Newcastle football team. Pull a bird up there, and I guarantee she can name the Newcastle starting 11. And I'm talking just a normal bird, not a season ticket holder to St. James Park, just a normal girl. But they know all about the team and are genuinely invested. It's crazy. The nightlife is very good too. My era was the big market, quayside, and a club called Julie's. Again, I'm not sure if all that is there now, because I am going back at least a couple of decades. So, yes, we always looked at when fixtures against Newcastle, Sunderland or Middlesbrough came up and made travel plans and hotels and tried to get everything organised ready. Everyone was always up for Newcastle away. My last videos were about Butlins, Blackpool and Birmingham away. I was a youth then. For my first Newcastle away trip, I was a bit older and wiser and had moved up the ranks in our firm. I was only around 22 years old at this time. But don't forget, I had been dancing with our firm since I was 16 years old, travelling home and away. In those 6 years I had been involved in many rows, fought 30-man brawls, had one-on-one battles, got smacked, got hurt, got turned over, but also had some victories. More importantly, I had never ran and always stood my ground, even if it meant taking a clump. All the senior lads was aware of this. They had seen all this. Even though they are engaged in battle, they know who has stood their ground, who has ran off or bottled it. They are aware there has been some instances when the police spotter has had banter with us and actually told our main lads who the members are that bottled fights. Apparently they have seen CCTV footage of some of our fights, and they are fully aware of who can have it out and who freezes and goes to the back of the crowd when it all kicks off. So our lads were fully aware and gave me that respect. I was only 22, but wasn't seen as a youth anymore. I was seen as one of the main core members. Plus, I was getting a reputation in town for fighting away from football. I was getting into a lot of fights when I was with my normal mates away from the firm. Just lads I went to school with and would go clubbing with some Friday and Sat nights. Sometimes the night would end up in a fight for whatever reason, and I was having a bit of success in these fights, and a lot of the lads and people around the town was hearing about it, which boosted my reputation in the firm. I really enjoyed the reputation. It gave me confidence. I worked in a factory at the time, and all the lads there knew about my reputation too, and had actually had a couple of rows at work. Not major ones, I just had to pull up a few people about things at different times. Anyway, back to Newcastle. I had to make sure my gear was decent. I like to try and always get new clobber if it was a big away game, especially if it was going to be a weekend thing. All my wages would go on clothes and going out for that weekend, every penny. Come Monday morning, I would have nothing left. I was young, free and single. I lived weekend to weekend. I was actually on decent money, to be fair. Some lads would wear tackany or Fila tracksuits. I wasn't into all that. I would wear Armani jeans and a Stone Island jumper, or a nice polo shirt. For Newcastle, I went and got me a brown Burberry woolen jumper. It was beautiful. It would still be decent even now. A couple of weeks previous, I had got me a black Burberry golf jacket. It was all black on the outside, with the Burberry check on the collars and check interior. I loved that jacket. Sorry for going off track. I just enjoy talking about clothes back then, and I try and tell every detail, but let's talk about the actual trip to Newcastle now. As expected, we had a decent head count to go to Newcastle. Even if we had the usual letdowns and no shows, we still had a number of around 30 proper lads. We had more numbers than that, but I only include the proper main lads in that 30. Even better, most of us would be staying all weekend, so off we went. It's a very long journey for us to Newcastle. I'm talking hours. I can't do the coach all the way there. Don't fancy the train either. So one of the lads said he would drive down and could take two of us. Just had to chip in for petrol. Not a problem. All day at work on Friday, I was buzzing. Couldn't stop thinking about Newcastle. I always finished work at 2 p.m. on Fridays, and my mates were picking me up at 2:30. So straight home, a quick wash, and then off I went. The two lads I travelled with were more my age, so we had a good crack on the way up there. Oasis playing on the car stereo, us talking about birds, who was most likely to pull. Then the topic of conversations turned to the Gremlins. We had heard they were a decent outfit, but we had never come up against them before. Some of their clashes with the Seaburn Casuals were legendary and nasty, so it would be interesting coming up against them. My concern, as usual, was, what if we had it off with them? Got in a good row, but then I bumped into them later in a club or something. We had arrived. We were all excited. We were staying at Diggs in a place called Jesmond. It wasn't a B&B. It was more like student accommodation, but it was okay. We got a taxi and asked the driver where we should go. He told us a place called the Big Market, so that's where we went. I could talk about our night out for hours. It was quality. I loved it, but I will spare you from that. But I will have to talk about the Saturday night out later, because that was very eventful. Sat morning, all the lads had landed. Everyone spread out all over Newcastle and staying in different digs. Some in Gateshead and some in a place called Wallsend, which all the locals told me was a rough place to be for outsiders. We all met up in a pub just around the corner from St. James Park. The place was swarming with Newcastle fans, but everyone in good spirits. Drinks flowing and the usual songs blurting out by our shirts. There was talk about the Gremlins coming to the pub to confront us. But you hear this every single away game you go to. It's all talk and very rarely happens. But no, the Geordies were true to their word, fair play to them. 4 or 5 of them ran in kicking over tables. A couple of our shirts got smacked in the process. More of their lads started piling in, but it was a small door, and it was like they had to come in one by one, and not all of them came in. But they clearly had lots of lads outside waiting for their chance. It must have been their top main lads that got first dibs, and had the bottle to run in the pub. We retaliated, and went for their lads inside the pub. Bottles and chairs were being thrown, and a couple of very short one-on-one battles was happening by the doorway. The pub got smashed up, a couple of windows shattered. Not sure if it was by us or them. My adrenaline was in full flow at this point. Their lads ran out the pub, and we all ran outside. As we all ran out, we quickly realised it was an ambush and a plan to draw us out. Schoolboy error by us. About 50 of them waiting, throwing bottles, sticks and punches at us, all standing in a semicircle around the door entrance. The lads they sent in wasn't their top lads. They were decoys to draw us out. Clever boys. We were outnumbered, but not massively. We had about 30 lads there, and they had around 50. It was a good row, and we gave as good as we got. A few of our lads got hurt, but so did some of their lads. I was up against a big fat lad. He wasn't a dresser. He had jeans and a Newcastle polo shirt on, but he was with their main lads, so I presume he was a gremlin. I remember thinking quickly, this guy is a lot bigger than me, and fat. I can't get into a wrestling match with him. I threw the first punch, then took about 4 steps back so he couldn't grab me. I landed my punch, but it didn't knock him to the ground. I was hoping it would. We were both doing that stupid boxing stance with our fists up and bouncing on the spot, both screaming at each other and urging each other to come on. Fists flying all around me. He lurched forward to try and grab me when I felt a sharp bang on my head. One of their lot hit me over the back of the head with a can of beer. At the same time, one of our lads punched the fat guy square in the jaw from side on. The lad that smacked me over the head with the can had ran off to the back of the bunch of lads. I think he thought that it would have floored me, but it didn't. It just stunned me. And when he saw that, he backed off. For me, that's a coward. The old Bill steamed into everyone. They were on horses and they were smacking people at random with their batons. The gremlins all backed off and disappeared into the background. I respect them. They knew how many of us there was. They knew where we was, and they turned up and ran into the pub to us. I respected that. I was bleeding. I had had a tiny gash and a big lump. Probably should have gone to hospital for a few stitches, but I went to the game. My head was throbbing. It looked like I had a tiny golf ball sticking out. It was gashed too. Could have done with 2 or 3 stitches put in. It was bleeding quite bad. It was actually Newcastle fans that sorted me out. A middle-aged couple with their young son. They got some tissue for my head, and they had somehow managed to get some antiseptic wipes from somewhere. I said my thanks, and got into the ground with my mates. I couldn't focus on the game itself. I had a splitting headache. Also, couldn't believe how high up we were in the away end. We stood right at the top tier. It felt like we was in the sky. Not sure if you have ever been in the away end at Newcastle, especially right at the top tier, but you are very high up. I've not experienced anything like that before. Not in England, anyway. By the second half, my head had calmed down. I just wanted the lump to go down in time before I was to go clubbing in the night. Or in case we had round 2 with the Gremlins. Because the talk was that they wanted to come for us again after the game. What a great stadium and atmosphere, by the way. I have always had a soft spot for Newcastle and the Geordies. Sure enough, to their credit, the Gremlins was waiting for us outside the ground after the game. But any battle would be impossible. The old Bill was already on top and separating us. It was just handbags and shouting at each other, and squaring up as close as you could with the police in between. There was a few more small skirmishes, but nothing major, nothing worth going into detail about on here. We all got back to our digs, and for the lads that were staying over, we arranged to meet up in a couple of hours. Some boys went to get some food, some phoned their misses and kids. I jumped in the shower, the lump had gone down and I had stopped bleeding, but there was a gash there. We got to the big market, I was buzzing to be out, and amongst all the nightlife, we started off in a place I think was called the Pig and Whistle. My memory isn't the best, but I think we then went to Idols, I think. We were all cracking on with birds. The girls liked the fact we was from out of town, and was very friendly. They all kept asking if we were going to a club called Julie's. Later on, I just said yeah, not really knowing where the club was, or even where I would be. Later on, we all told the girls that we were professional footballers. I thought they would fall for it. They knew we were from out of town. We were dressed differently from the local lads, so I thought it would be an easy blag. The girl I was with seemed to be buying it. She asked who I played for. I said Ipswich Town. I chose them because I didn't think she would have heard of them, let alone know of any players' names for them. In those days there wasn't Google. I could give her a name and she wouldn't be able to check. So, I gave her the name of a player I sort of looked like. She knew about Bobby Robson and knew he was linked to Ipswich. Wow. Then she started asking lads in the pub if I was that Ipswich player. It was getting embarrassing, and I was about to be found out. I gave her my number, made my excuses, and moved on. I had that one in the bank to fall back on if needed later. It was a decent option. The older lads wanted to move on to Quayside. I wasn't happy because I was having success in the big market, and had laid a few seeds. But the Quayside was good too. The pubs seemed to be more spaced out there though. They wasn't all next to each other like in the big market. We were all cracking on and having a great time. I am always cautious that local lads think we are taking the piss. But no, the Geordie lads are as good as gold. Even ended up making mates with a few of them. The night went on and on. A few of us ended up with a group of girls from a place called Gremlins. I'd never heard of it before, and thought they were taking the piss and just making up names. We tried to get in a nightclub that was on a boat on the River Tyne, but the bouncers saw that we were drunk, loud, and noticed the gash on my head too and turned us away. We then got turned away from Julie's for the same reason. We ended up in some dive near the Tyne. It was full of students, not my scene, but it allowed us to play up a bit in the club and have a laugh with the girls. Most of the students looked like they were on E. I was tempted to see if I could get one, but none of the lads or girls I was with were about that life, so I left it. I'd love to say there was loads of trouble again, and it all kicked off with the Gremlins for round 3, but the truth is, it didn't. We all had a great time. Newcastle became one of my favourite places. Me and my friend ended up going back to the girls' house in Cramlington. It seemed like a long journey in the taxi, and we were going further up north. I haven't mentioned Whitley Bay on the bank holiday Sunday. The strippers and pole dancers in daytime in the pubs there. What a place. To be continued. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video. If you would like to see more, because I have many more stories to tell, then please like this video and click the subscribe logo in the bottom right of this screen. Thanks again and see you next time. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you subscribe, you will be notified when we release a new video. It could be your firm we make a video about next, so don't miss out and hit the subscribe button. You can find me on Facebook or email me if you have a good story to tell. See you next time.